UFC Mexico City card did not end as it was supposed to. 21,546 fans who bought the tickets did not get everything they wanted. Still, it was worth watching with a lot of great moments. Ortega getting scared from Mark Goddard, Pantoja showing the sign of 5-0, reminding everyone his level on main event fighters, and the crowd fight, which was as entertaining as a high-level UFC fight. So let's not waste time and start the recap of UFC Mexico City, where Mexico went 6-4 against the world. I'm the Indian accent guy and you are on Fightbook. The event kicked off with a mismatch between a Tajik fighter Muhammad Naimov versus someone named Erik Silva. Naimov defeated Silva via TKO in only 44 seconds of the first round after Silva suffered an injury. Naimov has extended his win streak to 6, being 3-0 in the UFC. Silva stepped back into the gap between the cage and octagon and got his foot caught and suffered a torn MCL. It sucked for Silva, who is now down to 0-2 in the UFC. Felipe dos Santos won the fight by a controversial split decision, which was the first of 4 split decisions on the card, and believe me, the record for the most split decisions on a single card is 5. Dos Santos fought Manuel tooth and nail on short notice, and then with a full camp had all kinds of trouble with Victor Altamirano in his next fight. The local judge had the fight for the Mexican, while veteran judges Mike Bell and Camilla scored it for Dos Santos. After losing his UFC debut, Altamirano won 2 in a row and is now on a 2-fight losing streak. The only debutant on the card, Luis Rodriguez, won the fight by a second-round submission, extending his win streak to 5. His opponent, Dennis Bondar, is now down to 0-3 in the UFC. Ziam proved himself a fighter we should keep an eye on by defeating Claudio Puelles via split decision. Puelles had control for the majority but with very little damage to show for it. He officially landed only 2 significant strikes in the first 2 rounds, so being a submission or a bust is not a viable strategy with how well-rounded today's mixed martial artists are. Ziam is now on a 3-fight win streak, winning 5 out of his last 6 UFC bouts, but he is yet to finish an opponent in the octagon inside the distance. Puelles, on the other hand, was once being considered a rising prospect with his 5-fight win streak, but then he lost to Dan Hooker and this was his second straight loss. After being stopped prematurely and ruled as a no contest instead of announcing Chairez as a winner at Noche UFC last year, Chairez settled the score here at UFC Mexico City by submitting Lacerda again in the very first round. He had lost his debut against Tetsuro Taira before, so now his UFC record improved to 1-1-1. Lacerda, on the other hand, has beat the record for most fights in the UFC without getting a single win in the octagon. The only fighter to go 0-5 in the UFC before is John Alicio, and Lacerda is now 0-5-1. Aguilar vs Mendonca felt like 45 minutes, which also ended in a split decision in favor of Aguilar. That was the 3rd split decision in the prelims and the most controversial of the whole card. Aguilar lost his UFC debut against Tetsuro Taira and now has won back-to-back in the UFC, while Mendonca, who should have got the nod to improve his UFC record as 1-2, is still winless in the promotion, down to 0-3 and could be cut. Raoni Barcelos submitted Cristian Quinonez in the 3rd round to close the prelims of UFC Mexico City. It was nice to see him come back after losing 2 straight. His UFC record has now improved to 7 wins and 4 losses. Quinonez, on the other hand, won his UFC debut against Khalid Taha via first round TKO, and now he has lost back-to-back in the UFC. Manuel Torres kicked off the main card with the first round submission win over Duncan. It was the 6th straight first round finish for him, and that's enough to prove that he is the real deal. Just a beast, arguably the best Mexican-born prospect in the UFC right now. He has now climbed to 3-0 in the UFC, all first round performance earning finishes. His opponent Chris Duncan entered the octagon being 2-0 in the UFC just like Torres, but now he is down to 2-1 in the UFC. Right at the time when Bruce Buffer was announcing the winner of this fight fans got an extra treat when a fight broke out in the crowd. Even the fights among fans were good in Mexico, who kept knocking each other out in the crowd. If you have seen the footage, you would realize that Poatan's left hand is not the most dangerous one. This black shirt guy is better in it and deserves a 50k performance bonus as well. Anyway, after this special treatment, the next fight was only women's fight in the card where Yazmin backed herself into the win column and won the fight by unanimous decision. Previously, she competed as an undefeated with 10-0 record against Denise Gomez and lost the fight just in 20 seconds. Now she is 3-1 in the UFC. Her opponent Sam Hughes is now down to 3-2 in her last 5 UFC bouts. Next fight was supposed to be Raul Rosas Jr. vs Ricky Tercios, which was cancelled when the kid fell ill right before making an entrance. So the bout is rescheduled for next weekend's Vegas card. Daniel Zellhuber defeated Francisco Prado via unanimous decision in a barn burner which earned them both a 100k fight of the night bonus. After losing his undefeated record in his UFC debut, he has garnished an impressive 3-fight win streak. On the other hand, with that loss at UFC Mexico City, Prado is down to 1-2 in the UFC. Has proved he needs eyes to win a fight, but he doesn't need them to win a fight of the night bonus. Brian Ortega hurt his ankle during his warm-up in the octagon and then faced adversity in the first round. But then he bounced back and choked out Yair Rodriguez in the third round, silencing his haters who kept making fun of him for being ranked as top 5 in the division. It was great to see that he still has that kind of performance in him after that layoff. He not only got back into the win column but into the title picture as well. His previous loss against Yair Rodriguez was because of the shoulder injury, which is now avenged. His performance earned him another performance bonus, and now he holds the record for second most finishes and third most post-fight bonuses in featherweight division. Yair Rodriguez, on the other hand, had Ilya fight in his hands and dropped it. After a huge first round, he seemed to gas out and lost second straight fight. Previously, he lost the fight to Alex Volkanovski for the undisputed title. Brandon Royval did what he was not expected to do. He came back into the win column by beating the Mexican star and 2 times former champ in his home crowd via split decision, ruining the only obvious title fight at UFC 301. He has some serious wins over solid oppositions, but this is absolutely the signature win that establishes him as a truly top flyweight. Royval attempted 556 strikes at elevation against Brandon Moreno. He only landed 28% of his significant strikes attempts, but with that volume, he still outlanded Moreno 145 to 112. That is just an incredible work rate. His 556 strikes attempts are the second most ever in a UFC fight, behind only Max Holloway's 746 against Calvin Kattar. He is now 4-1 in his last 5 UFC fights and previously lost the fight for the title against Alexandre Pantoja. He indeed got himself back into the title contention, but fans are literally against his rematch with Alexandre Pantoja, especially after just 1 win. Brandon Moreno, on the other hand, previously lost his belt to Pantoja, and here he was supposed to beat Royval and face Pantoja again in the trilogy in Brazil at UFC 301. But all plans were ruined as he could not get the nod. He is no longer a contender for a title shot and down to 0-2-1 in Mexico. Who do you think would face Alexandre Pantoja at UFC 301? Share your thoughts in the comment section and I'll see you in the next video. So till then, do whatever you want.